Hi y'all, it's Molly with another McDoodle for your noodle. We're going to be talking about hematopoiesis today, and this one's a little bit different because it's not animated. I drew the sketch out and we're going to go through it. So we need to know the stem cells and the progenitor hierarchy. So stem cell, we've got this top section here that's yellow, that's in your marrow, and then the red is your blood, the pink is connective tissue, and then down here are the different lineages. To start, we've got the hematopoietic stem cell, also known as the PPSC, pluripotential stem cell. And that can go one of two ways into these progenitors. So this one stands for the common myeloid progenitor, and then it also has another name because things need to be confusing. And so this is colony forming unit. And then I've put the different meanings of the abbreviations here. So we've got granulocytes, erythrocytes, monocytes, and megakaryocytes. And then over here, we've got the common lymphoid progenitor, also colony forming unit for lymphoid cells. And we do need to know the different transcription factors and things that will push the stem cell towards different lineages. So we've got this transcription factor right here is called Icaros. Okay, so Icarus is, if you know Greek mythology, well, I mean, you don't even have to really know Greek mythology. Icarus is a pretty famous story. His dad built wings and he flew too close to the sun and they melted. For our purposes, I'm trying to think of it as like his dad was trying to protect him, like your immune system tries to protect you with the lymphoid cells. Okay, so that's Icaros. And then coming down here, we'll do this side first because it's a lot smaller. The lymphoid progenitors, there was a dashed line in our textbook, so I guess some of it go to the dendritic cells, but we'll talk about that more with the myeloid progenitors cells. But we've got a couple of more transcription factors here that stimulate this common lymphoid progenitor from differentiating into a B cell, a T cell, and a natural killer cell. So for the PAX5 transcription factor, Pax in ancient Rome was peace, and the symbol for peace in ancient Rome was an olive branch. So branch starts with B, so those go to B cells. And then you can remember, I don't know if it's necessary to know PAX5, but 5, peace has 5 letters in it, so we've got PAX5. And then this one over here, GATA3 or GATA3. The way that I'm remembering this one is get a T cell, so GAT, and also 3 rhymes with T, so GATA3. And then this last one over here, they don't know the exact mechanism for why it would be driven towards a natural killer cell, but they say that it's probably these cytokines, IL-2 and IL-15. Don't really think you need to know that. So if a lymphoid progenitor gets stimulated by PAX5, the transcription factor, it'll turn into a B cell once it migrates out of the marrow. So this is happening in the blood. And then it'll migrate into what they call bursa equivalent organs. So these are going to be your GI associated organs, also your marrow. That's why there's this arrow coming back here, and lymphatic tissue and spleen. And then some B cells specifically are going to differentiate into plasma cells. And then we have the T cells. So let me explain what this symbolism is. So I've got a key here. Okay, so the transcription factors are going to be in between stars. That's how you know what's a transcription factor, CFU, colony forming unit. Growth factors are going to be between 2 arrows. And the target of those growth factors is going to be with this symbol, and the arrow and the symbol are going to be the corresponding color of where it's coming from. So for the colored lines, we've got non-squiggly. That means that it produces. If it's squiggly, it moves to. So come back over here to the lymphoid cells. These B cells, once they differentiate, will migrate into these things, including migrating into the marrow. And then the T cell here, see, that's not a squiggly line, that's pointing to something that it produces. This growth factor, granulocyte macrophage colony stimulating factor. So T cells release this, also fibroblasts and endothelial cells release this. So again, over at the key, if you see the organ or cell releases this growth factor. So we've got fibroblasts, endothelial cells, and T cells releasing this. And this is going to target granulocytes So all of these guys over here, this G is the granulocyte monocyte progenitor. So it's gonna target this one because you can see there's the same color target on this. And then all of these granulocytes over here. So this is gonna tell this to start producing these. How does this make sense is that the T cell is a part of the immune system, and you have these granulocytes participating in various immune system things, you know, like you see increased neutrophils with an infection, eosinophils with allergies. And it's also going to come over here and stimulate the megakaryocyte erythrocyte progenitor, and then also the different cells that differentiate from there. So it's going to stimulate the erythrocyte progenitor and the megakaryocyte progenitor. So basically we're just splitting this up into two different cell lines, and these are both getting stimulated. So these are all going to migrate into the tissues, and this is the lymphoid lineage. They're all coming from the lymphoid progenitor. So that is the simpler part of it. And then the more, well, I guess diverse opportunity to differentiate into things is for the common myeloid progenitor. So this one is going to differentiate into either the megakaryocyte erythrocyte progenitor or the granulocyte monocyte progenitor. And that alternative name for that, CFU-GM, colony forming unit, granulocyte monocyte, okay? So starting over here, you can see here that I've got a little EPO, erythropoietin. So that is a growth factor that is basically, we need more red blood cells. Erythro is in the thing. But it's going to be released by the liver and the kidneys. And as you can see here, one of its targets is this common myelocyte progenitor cell. So this stimulates this to differentiate. It's also going to come over here to the megakaryocyte erythrocyte progenitor, the erythrocytes. And then so you can see here where things start to go specifically into red blood cells, because the megakaryocyte is going to go into platelets, and we need more red blood cells. So we're getting increased EPO to generate more blood cells. So we're encouraging this to differentiate down this pathway. So when it does, we start with the erythrocyte progenitor cell, and then we've got this pro-erythroblast. And this is called the orthochromatic erythroblast, but it's also a reticulocyte. So if you see increased reticulocytes, there's some red blood cell production going on. And then when we finally get down to this red blood cell, the lifespan of a red blood cell, which I'm sure many of you already know by now, 120 days. And this is that target from the T cell again, the granulocyte monocyte stimulator. Okay. So coming back here to the megakaryocyte erythrocyte progenitor. The more times I say these, the more I'm hoping it will sink in what they stand for, so you can recognize them on the test. Okay, so this right here is thrombopoietin, and you can see it's produced by a more variety of things than EPO. EPO is mainly the kidney, okay, but some of the liver does it, but think mainly the kidney for EPO. For thrombopoietin, we've got the liver, kidneys. This is skeletal muscle, so I'll try to put a muscle on a bone. And then this is the bone marrow. So those things are gonna release the thrombopoietin to encourage down this differentiation path. So you can see that it's going to target this megakaryocyte progenitor. This is also known as the colony forming unit, MEG, for megakaryocytes. So you can see it targets that. We move into the megakaryoblast. Blast is kind of just like a precursor before, and then we get the giant megakaryocyte. That is also stimulated to differentiate into platelets. So basically, they're gonna have part of this cell blebbing off to form platelets. And they're often just like that, but they kind of look like that further closer up. And the lifespan of platelets is 7 to 10 days. So that is the very far left, going from the hematopoietic stem cell to the common myeloid progenitor, colony forming unit, granuloerythrocyte, monocyte, megakaryocyte. Okay, that's what that all stands for. So we went down this side of the path. And then when we get EPO produced by mainly the kidneys, liver, we go into the megakaryocyte erythroid progenitor. And then if we get stimulated by EPO, we're going to go into the erythrocyte progenitor or colony forming unit erythrocyte. Then we move into the pro-erythroblast, and then we've got the reticulocyte here, orthochromatic erythroblast, and then we end up with a red blood cell, erythrocyte. They last 120 days. This is stimulated by EPO and then also a little bit by T cells, but mainly EPO. And then the megakaryocyte pathway into platelets is stimulated by thrombopoietin, and the megakaryocyte progenitor cell forms first. We've got the blast, and we've got the megakaryocyte and the platelets that have blebbed off. Okay, so finally, this really big boy. We've got granulocyte, monocyte progenitor cells, or colony-forming unit, granulocyte, monocyte. And you can see here, remember we talked about the T cells are going to stimulate these. There's also another stimulus of these that actually comes from the monocytes, GCSF, granulocyte colony stimulating factor, and that is produced by the monocytes and by the endothelial cells, if you remember here, okay? That's going to go to the granulocyte, monocyte progenitor and say that you need to differentiate into these various cells. You can see here that it also goes for the eosinophil progenitor. It goes for the basophil progenitor. So you can see here that this basically is stimulating eosinophils and basophils. So it kind of makes sense because it's granulocyte colony stimulating factor, and these guys are going to end up with, you know, other cells in this section might have some granulocytes. You can see there's a mast cell and stuff, but these are the main big guys that are going to have granulocytes. And again, just a reminder, these are stimulated by the T cell releasing the growth factor for granulocyte, monocyte progenitor. So we've got the one monocyte progenitor going obviously into monocytes, and it's going to release that growth factor if needed. The lifespan of a monocyte is actually only 16 hours, and it moves into whatever connective tissue. We've got different macrophages that are specific to certain tissues. All right, so you've got the, I don't know if this is how you say it, but you've got the Kupffer cells. Those are from the liver. And then you also have microglia in the brain. Okay, so those are different types of macrophages based on the tissue that they go into. The lifespan for these, the textbook says, is unknown. And then we've got the eosinophil progenitor that's going to move into eosinophils, which will survive for 8 to 10 hours in the blood and then migrate into tissue. Again, we don't know their lifespan. The basophil mast cell progenitor is going to differentiate into either the basophil progenitor or the mast cell progenitor. This also has the colony forming unit basophil, and that's going to turn into a basophil, and that basophil is going to survive in the blood for 8 hours, or the mast cell progenitor is going to go straight into the connective tissue and differentiate into a mast cell. These also have an unknown lifespan. Then, almost done here, we've got the neutrophil progenitor cell, which for some reason has colony forming unit granulocytes, so G. We've got the 3 granulocytes here, so I don't know why this one specifically gets the granulocyte name and this one gets eosinophil, but it is what it is. So that is going to turn into a neutrophil, and that is going to live in the blood for 8 to 12 hours, and then it's going to migrate into the tissue, and we actually know how long their lifespan is in the tissue. It's 1 to 2 days. And then we've also got the pro-dendritic cell, and that's going to go straight into the connective tissue again, like these mast cells, and form a dendritic cell. All right, so kind of gross. I hope I helped. Let's just do like a really quick rundown. So we've got the stem cell that's coming from, we've got 2 lineages. We got the myeloid lineage, which is actually like split into the red blood cell and the platelet lineage. And then we've got the lymphoid lineage. The lymphoid lineage, there's less options to go to, but you do need to know the transcription factors. So we've got Icarus. Remember, his dad was trying to help him by telling him not to fly towards the sun, like our immune system is trying to help us when bad things are happening. We've got PAX5 going to B cells. So we've got the olive branch starting with B, making B cells. Got PAX, which means peace, and peace has 5 letters if you need to know PAX5. We've got GATA3, G-A-T, get a T cell, and 3 rhymes with T. That's going to tell us to make T cells. T cells release these granulocyte, monocyte colony stimulating factors, and also fibroblasts and endothelial cells release that. We've got the different targets here. I'm going to include this graphic so you can look at it more. And it's going to target this guy up here and various cells across here, kind of to help with the immune system. And then we've got the B cell that some differentiate into plasma cells. These can move into the marrow and bursa equivalent organs like GI associated, lymphatic tissue, spleen. These are just going to go into connective tissues. Then we've got this side of things again. The other name for the common myelocyte progenitor is colony forming unit, granulocyte, erythrocyte, monocyte, megakaryocyte. So CFU-GEMM. This is going to, if it's stimulated by EPO, go into forming a red blood cell. So that's going to go from the myelocyte erythrocyte progenitor. It's going to take the erythrocyte path. It's going to go down this colony forming unit erythrocyte, or the erythrocyte progenitor cell. That's going to go into a pro-erythroblast. That's going to go into a reticulocyte. I want to add to this. Okay, also known as an orthochromatic erythroblast, and that's going to move into an erythrocyte. It's going to survive for 120 days in the blood. If it goes down this path, because it's stimulated by thrombopoietin, again, EPO is produced mainly by the kidneys, some by the liver. Thrombopoietin is produced by the liver, kidneys, skeletal muscle, and bone marrow. It's going to go into this megakaryocyte progenitor cell, or colony forming unit megakaryocyte, going to a blast. You know, that's right before it's moving further down the differentiation pathway. And that's going to form into a megakaryocyte, and then blebs are going to come off of that, creating platelets. Those are going to be in your blood for 7 to 10 days. Then lastly, we've got the granulocyte monocyte progenitor, or the colony forming unit of granulocytes and monocytes. We've got 5 different options here. So the first one, we've got the monocyte progenitor cell, or colony forming unit monocytes. That is going to produce a monocyte. Surprise, surprise. Those survive for 16 hours in the blood. Some move to the connective tissue and our macrophages with an unknown lifespan. I went over a couple examples of specific macrophages. And then the monocyte is going to release the granulocyte colony stimulating factor, this growth factor here. Endothelial cells can also release it, and that is going to target these granulocytes and say to make these 5 here in the center. The other option, it can go to an eosinophil progenitor, or colony forming unit eosinophils. That's going to go into the blood and survive for 8 to 12 hours. When it migrates into tissue, we do not know how long it lasts. Then we've got the basophil and mast cell progenitor cells. So this can make either basophils or mast cells. If it goes the basophil route, we've got the progenitor formed in the blood marrow, or colony forming unit basophil. That's going to differentiate into a basophil in the blood and last for 8 hours. If it goes the mast cell route, it's going to migrate into the tissue, and in the tissue, connective tissue, it's going to form the mast cell progenitor, and then it's going to differentiate into a mast cell of an unknown lifespan. Moving on, we've got the neutrophil progenitors, also, you know, unique to this one, colony forming unit granulocytes. I don't know why, because these 3 are granulocytes. I don't know why that got that specific name, but if you remember that these make sense, CFU-EO, CFU basophil, the last granulocyte left is neutrophil. So neutrophil progenitor, or colony forming unit granulocyte, that's going to differentiate into a neutrophil in the blood and last for 8 to 12 hours. When it migrates into the tissue, it lasts for 1 to 2 days. And then, whoo, finally, oh my God, this is a lot. I hope this helps. We've got the prodendritic cell, and that's going to migrate into the tissue and the connective tissue and differentiate into a dendritic cell in the tissue. Again, I'm gonna give you guys this PNG or PDF so that you can look over it at other times, but I hope that this helped break it down somewhat clearly. You can see where differentiation is occurring in the bone marrow, and then where it's occurring in the blood, where it's occurring in the tissue, different lineages, and the different transcription factors that influence this differentiation, and the growth factors that stimulate the growth of these colonies that result. And so, hematopoiesis by McDoodles for your noodle. I hope this helps, and Have a great weekend studying.